hello everyone. Warm welcome to everyone who have joined us in this Twitter space. And thank you so much for tuning in. This is the second Twitter space of Kubesimplify in a row, where we'll be discussing about Git and GitHub best practices. And we had our first Twitter space on Linux with Apurv Goel as the guest. So make sure to watch the recordings of that space if you have missed it. It's up on Sayam's YouTube channel. So first of all, I would like to break down what is Kubesimplify to everyone. Kubesimplify is a community started by Sayam that aims at simplifying the cloud native learning curve for everyone. And it's a community for everyone, including students as well as professionals. Many folks might have come across various blogs by Kubesimplify, but it is not only limited to blogs. It has several mini projects ongoing. So do join our Discord community, involve, and we really look forward to your contributions as well. So moving forward, I would like to welcome our beloved guests for today's Twitter space, Eddie, Jaoude, Pradumna Saraf, and Pavan Gudiwada. And do check out their profiles and follow the amazing work they are doing. So now let me hand over the mic to our speakers and hear out their introduction from them. So let's start with Eddie.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Oh wow, I have to go first. That's quite stressful. It's great to be here. I'm super excited to geek out with you all. I don't want to shout too much about myself. You can check me out my profile. What I'd recommend doing is checking out the other. There's amazing speakers on stage. Go check them out. There's also some wonderful people in the audience as well. I see Shabangi and Gopal and so many others. Just go check them out. I'm doing that while we're going through this space as well, and seeing who else I can follow as well. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to geek out with you all.
Amazing. Thank you, Eddie. So we can get into Pradumna's introduction.
Hey, hello everyone. Thank you for the invite. Really excited for the today's space and looking forward to learn from the speaker as well as the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pradumna. So Pavan, would you like to add your introduction?
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. I'm Pavan. I'm an Azure DevOps engineer. I mostly contribute to Kubesimplify. I edit blogs here. We are a really cool team, and it's amazing to be here. And let's get started.
Great, awesome. So folks, you can request to be the speaker to add your views or even put your questions in the space. So let's starting with the basics. I would like to ask first thing first that what is Git and GitHub? And the second question related to it is, as we all know how popular they are, but we would like to know about the other alternatives to both, as maybe for the folks searching for it or who are facing some of the problems associated with these can hang over about it or can know about it. So please share your insights. Yeah, sure, Eddie can go first.
I think in this situation, it's probably easier to go first. I'll get someone to talk about the alternatives. So, so your question was, what is Git and GitHub? I mean, the way I just like to describe it is, Git is the version control system, and GitHub is a platform where we can host those projects, and gives us more tools on top of that, like project management tools, like issues, milestones, project boards, CI now, and so much more. And then but what really is that as a whole? I mean, if I break it down to the simplest form, it's a social platform. I specifically don't say social coding because I really think coding is such a small part of it now. It's more about collaboration. And so if people think of, say, Instagram, you can comment, you can share the post, or you can do the same on GitHub with people's work. Again, I'm specifically not saying code, but you can take it further, and that you can offer improvements to them, so that you can suggest improvements back, and then the owner of the project, the maintainers, can decide to choose it or not. Like, for example, I've made a contribution to Kubernetes with their automated testing, but it's not something they want to do at the moment because they're refactoring one of their projects. I still think it's beneficial, so I'm actually keep my fork going with the automated testing coverage, because I still want them to work after they refactor the whole project. So I know they've got a lot on their plate at the moment, so not more I want to give them, but I can still run my fork. So even if someone doesn't accept your changes, you can still run with it as well. So if anyone wants to contribute and get involved, more than welcome to do that as well. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yep, that was great, of course. Thanks for sharing, Eddie. So Pavan would like to add his insights. Sure, Pavan, go ahead.
Yeah, so just like Eddie said, GitHub or Git has become more than just for programmers or developers. It has become a platform or a way to version control. So version controlling, if you are not sure, if you don't know what it is. So the problem when you write code or when you do something is you have to keep track of the changes that you have made already. So this is very hard when you have hundreds or thousands of people contributing to the same project. So Git was started by Linus Torvalds, the same person who developed the Linux kernel. So the problem that he had was there were thousands of developers across the world developing. So he wanted to find a solution, and that's how he ended up building Git, which is now completely open source, and it's the most used version control system. And GitHub is a platform that offers services using Git.
That was great, Pavan. Crystal clear. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, let's move with Pradumna. Please, Pradumna, carry on.
Yeah, Eddie and Bern already put some great point, but I want to add just one more point. GitHub is also a platform where your history is maintained, how you improve over time. For example, if you write first code of HTML and how you convert into how you improve website by adding CSS, then move forward JavaScript and then backend. Yeah, so it's a whole history how you improve over time as well as a complete live resume of yours. Yeah.
Awesome. That was some great points. And I would like to remind folks that the tweet has been pinned above, so you could put your questions and also refer to the relevant links associated with Git and GitHub best practices. Check out Eddie Hub link, which we have also pinned in the tweet. So yeah, folks can always request to be the speaker. We'll give the stage to you. So let's move on with another question. So recently we have seen many tweets around GitHub Copilot, right? And it is in talks for a while now. So it's paid and stuff. So could you please shower some light on it? We can start with any of you. Yeah, sure, Eddie.
Bhavya had their pronounced name, had their hand up before me, by the way.
Okay, so I think Bhavya can speak now. Yeah.
Has Twitter bug strike again?
Yep, that's what exactly my thoughts. Okay, so we can continue with Bhavya a little later. So you can go ahead, Eddie. We'd love to listen to your views.
Okay, thank you. So I being GitHub star, I got access to GitHub Copilot like really early on, and I was a bit skeptical, like everybody else. We have IntelliSense in our IDEs already, auto-completing functions and parameters and variable names and so forth. But I really like GitHub Copilot. I really do. So I've been using it for a long while now, and I like how it completes the entire function, and does a lot more. I cheat, and I even start writing my video scripts or blog posts in VS Code, because then Copilot makes some suggestions. A lot of the time I don't use it when it comes to that, but it makes me think about what I'm writing, or maybe sparks an idea. I might go in a completely different direction, but the idea came from GitHub Copilot. So I really like it. Yes, I think it is chargeable now. I think it's $10 a month unless you're an open source contributor, and I see a lot of people in Eddie Hub, not because they're in Eddie Hub, but as in I'm just close with those people, get it for free because they contribute to open source a lot as well. So yeah, just contribute to open source. So many benefits from that. But yeah, it completes a lot. And I really enjoy it. And I personally would pay the $10 a month. I know people are a bit up in rage at the moment for that. But yeah, as also suggest really, I didn't realize how much I used it until I went on a plane and then, yeah, had no internet. And so then I realized actually I was expecting it just to auto-complete and to give me a suggestion. Again, like I said, I wouldn't use a lot of them, but it would just make me think about what I'm typing and so forth. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on it. True. Any other of our speakers who would like to add their insights on this? Yeah, sure, Pavan. You're most welcome.
Yeah, so it's really famous, and I've seen many people really interested in it. I've not tried it personally, but there's the controversy or the other thing about the GitHub Copilot algorithm being trained on open source or free code. So if so, basically, what the argument is that it is trained on GPL licensed code. So when you are doing some using GPL licensed code, then according to the license you have to give it out using GPL. So but that is not what Copilot is doing. So there's that hesitation in a lot of people to use it, because they are hesitant that it might come up to them, and there might be some copyright infringements. But that is a really less number of people, but I think it should be out there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pavan. It was quite useful. So we can hand over to Bhavya. I think she can speak now. Bhavya.
Yes. Hey everyone. Hey Eddie. Hey Pradumna. Hey Pavan. So Eddie, you just talked about automating things. So like automating things is just a plus and enhancing point for our projects. So for this, can you put some light on GitHub Actions?
Sure. Oh wow, I love GitHub Actions. Yeah, I use them. I say them. I use it, multiple actions on all my projects. So yeah, people can get started with literally a few lines of YAML config, so they don't have to be a GitHub Action expert, because I am definitely not. And so I recommend people, whatever commands they run locally for their project, say if they're building it or if they're running tests or running linters, make sure you run those on the GitHub Actions. So when someone contributes to your project or you contribute to your own project, you can just check that the code build, the project builds. You can check that the linting's done right, and so on. And it's a great way to contribute to other people's projects. They probably all have these commands, but people forget to run them. So yeah, add them to people's GitHub Actions. This can be done mostly copy and paste. Another couple of actions that I like to use if people are looking for things is creating releases. People don't create releases and tags really for their projects, but that really sets those projects apart. It looks more professional. And to create those manually, it takes only a few seconds. It's not very long, but you have to think: is there a minor release, a major build? To use a GitHub action to do it for you, it will know if it's what type of release it is. It will create a changelog for you. You can literally copy and paste a GitHub action from one of the Eddie Hub projects. The only thing you have to do is use conventional commit style, and Pradumna has some great tweets on that, so I'm not going to go into that just yet now. But basically, it's just you write your commits in a specific way, and I think that's just super good for that reason. Deploy to your where you're hosting, be it DigitalOcean, Azure, AWS, wherever it is, via GitHub Action. They have actions already built for those. You just need to change the config parameters. And again, when you're looking for a role, like when I'm hiring for my clients, this is something that I look for. What has someone done to their projects? And GitHub Actions is something I like to look for, because it shows that they're trying to automate things. Again, it doesn't have to be the fanciest, smartest, cleverest GitHub action. It just shows it taken some consideration and appreciation for the automation, because we want to automate as much as possible, but not because we don't want to talk to each other. We want to just get rid of all the your spacing's wrong, you're missing a semicolon, you're using the wrong types of quotes, whatever that is. You want to get rid of those conversations. You want automation to take care of those. Fast feedback on those, and then we want to collaborate and talk about the more interesting stuff and the more creative stuff. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. But get involved in GitHub Actions. It's a really big area, but you can start dipping your toe in slowly by using existing GitHub Actions, and you can write your own custom ones later on.
Yes, that's very insightful. I guess Pradyumna has hand raised, so yes, you can tell your views on that, Pradyumna.
It's very hard when Eddie is sitting beside and talk about that. Yeah. So yeah. So I think in our Eddie project as well as in my personal projects, I use lots of GitHub action. The best example that Eddie told that in pull requests, generally there were some indentation issues or semicolon issues. So I think commenting those, and it takes a lot of time to review that code and say people to fix that. I think good conversation get lost in that. So linters and prettiers take care of that. So yeah, I think using small action for small things create a huge impact in the contribution as well as the maintenance. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pradumna. That was quite insightful. Thanks for asking, Bhavya. Hope you got your question answered clearly. Would Pavan like to add something to it, or we can proceed? Okay, great then. So it's just a reminder that folks can request as a speaker as well, drop their questions in the pinned tweet, and we'll be taking up and answering. And you can even share your views. We'd love to hear your views on it. So moving forward, shout out to Ankit Mehta. He questioned in the tweet to cover how to use Git and GitHub effectively. Like very few people know about and use Git hooks, Git secrets, Git Flow. So would like to know your insights on this. Yeah, of course we can start with Eddie.
I'm so sorry. I was trying to read the thread, so I didn't hear the question. Was it about GitHub secrets?
Yep, it was about Git hooks, Git secrets, and Git Flow, as many people uh, don't know about this and how to use Git and GitHub effectively using all these stuff.
Okay. Well, there's a few questions in there, so I'll go lightly on a few of those, and then I'll see what other people think as well. So Git Flow is basically a branching strategy that became very popular quite a while ago, like, I don't know, maybe like 8 years ago or something like that. And I think we still use part of it today. The idea was that you create a branch for the releases that you're working on, and then you would still keep a previous one going for hot fixes, and then you would create features off that branch, and you would branch out and then bring it all back in towards the end of the milestone. But the downside for that is it reduced the continuous integration because the more branches you had, the less it all integrated. So we still use part of it today. We just don't branch. We have shorter lived branches. So I think back then on Git Flow, it was keeping like 2 or 3 branches open for longer, like a maintenance branch and new features coming up later on. And so you might collect 10 features together and deploy them like 2 weeks or a month later. Whereas nowadays, I feel we're taking a small piece of that and we're trying to deploy every day. Like, with all the great tools we have, like GitHub Actions, Kubernetes, all this great stuff. We don't really roll back anymore, I find, in the industry. We more roll forwards. So we try and release little and often. And so therefore, when something does go wrong, we can just release forward again, right? We don't need to unpick what we've done. We can just fix it really fast, because if we've only changed something small, really we only have to fix something small and then roll things forward. So for the last quite a few years now, even with client work, we don't have rollback procedures. We only have roll forward procedures, and we're just like, right, something's wrong. Let's fix it. Let's get it out there. Because there's a lot of high risk rolling things back. So yeah, if people are looking into Git Flow, there are some great diagrams online. I would take it with a pinch of salt, in that you don't need to go for such a crazy branching strategy. I mean, the Linux kernel has a really crazy branching strategy, because it has a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, checkpoints, let's say. But the more checkpoints you have, the more bottlenecks you have, the more gatekeeping you have. And so we really want to try and keep branches short-lived, pull requests small, and with less gatekeeping, and just keep things flowing forward, right? You don't have that one person so much that has to sign things off anymore. You might have 6 or 8 maintainers, and as long as maybe 2 of them approve it, it gets merged and it goes out. So yeah, have a look at it, take it with a pinch of salt. In terms of secrets, definitely put in your Git ignore any of your secret or environment files. They might be project specific. Also, if you use certain files a lot, like I'm trying to think what the Kubernetes one is now. I can't think of the extension. But put that in your global Git ignore. Don't make the mistake of accidentally committing it. I have so much in my global Git ignore, and so I don't have those issues. So you don't want to commit secrets or private keys or anything, or tokens, anything like that, even if it's a private repo. Hopefully it's open source, but even if it's private, do not commit it. because other people on the project will get it. There's just so many reasons why not to commit it. And then you can use GitHub secrets to store your secrets. And once you save them in GitHub, you can actually never get them back and actually see what it is. But your GitHub action, when it's doing the deployment, can. And so it can get access to it. It won't display it in the logs. Don't worry. GitHub's quite smart. And then you can use it when deploying. So when we deploy to our Kubernetes, to the Hub Kubernetes cluster, the keys are in GitHub, and it's setting all the secrets and doing all that awesome stuff. So yeah, use GitHub secrets. They're your friend. They're really straightforward. It's just a form field, like name and value. And then when you use it, it's very similar to any other coding language when you use it in the GitHub action as well. Praduma's hand's gone up. I look a bit worried, scared. Maybe I made a mistake. Over to you, Praduma.
You never made mistake. So yeah, I think Eddie has already put lots of point, and I agree to the Git flow thing. I think I personally like two things. One is Git tags, and second is conventional Git commits. So Git tags help you track the releases. For example, if you are bumping majors, for example, version 1.0 to 2.0, so it will be great to track the history which changes are done in version 2.0.0. So yeah, tags help a lot in that. And conventional commit help us to track the changes, overall the changes. For example, just for a brief, conventional commits are prefixes we do on the top of the commit messages. For example, if we adding some features, we use feat, FEAT, colon, and the changes, or fixes, FIX, colon, or something. So it helps to keep us track changes, overall changes. For example, how much features has been added to a repository, or how much fixes has been done to the repository. Also, the most lucrative part of using conventional commit is automating the releases. For example, if you run simple YAML config and GitHub Actions, it will auto releases for you. Yeah.
Yep, that was quite insightful and a detailed one. Thank you so much, Eddie and Pradumna, for sharing your views. It would be really helpful for folks out there. Yeah, Pavan, you could surely add your views on this.
Yeah, it was already explained completely, but one of the part of the question was about Gatehooks. So I'll just give a brief about them. So Gatehooks are your own personal local automation kind of things. So what you do is there are different so Git hooks are local for your own repository. So when you add hooks, you just have your hooks in your .git folder. uh, you just when you add hooks, so these can be of different types. So some of these hooks can help you in with automation. Let's say you have a pre-commit hook or a post-commit hook. What this does is, before the commit or after the commit, this automates some process. Let's say after the commit you want to make an email or something, then you can uh, add it to it, so that when you make a commit, it sends an email or it checks for something. So that way you can automate your Git, even if it is local to your own repository.
Thank you so much, Pavan. That was quite insightful about Githooks. It would really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining. And even I would like to give a shout out to Eddie Hub organization, because while starting out, I also used his awesome course, I would say, customizing your GitHub profile. And it was quite helpful because I even learned Markdown with it. And it was quite helpful for me in writing blogs as well. So yeah, check out his great community, his awesome community members as well. And sure, follow all the blogs of Kubesimplify, and we heartily welcome everyone for contributions. So yeah, we are really looking forward to awesome questions. And in the pinned tweet, I could see Jaina Ryan Vaishnav. Thank you so much for adding your views on it. In the earlier question, he's informing us that today there is an alternative of GitHub Copilot launched by Amazon, and it's Code Whisperer. Thanks a lot, Jaina Ryan. Yep, we have a speaker, Kunal Verma. Would anyone like to add their questions? They can raise hand.
Yeah, I actually had a question, if that's all right. If I can go ahead.
Yeah, sure, Kunal.
Yeah,
Welcome to the space. Thanks for joining.
thanks, Bushra, and thank you so much for all the speakers who are sharing their views. This was a really insightful space till now, and we have an amazing speaker line with us. So thank you so much for sharing that. I actually had a question related to GitHub Copilot that we just talked about. Would you actually recommend using Copilot for someone who's in their learning phase right now? Like, if they're just starting to learn about a technology or they want to implement it in their projects? Because what I believe is, correct me if I'm wrong here, sometimes Copilot also gives us, some of the best practices for the code that we are actually using. So, and I think that this could actually help us to understand the industry standards of writing that particular code in like what ways can we write it. So, would love to know all your views here. Thank you.
So any of our speakers can go ahead. I can see Eddie raising his hand. So yeah, Eddie, would love to hear your insights.
Thank you. I was actually raising my hand to answer your previous question, but yeah, sure, I can. I can give some thoughts on this. I'm massively on the fence. As I mentioned earlier on, I love GitHub Copilot. I've used it for so long. I think it's awesome. I'm definitely paying for it. I get it free as GitHub Star, but I would definitely pay for it. It's amazing. But I'm on the fence. As in, if someone, well, I'm always learning as well, and I realize how much I rely on it when I get on the plane and I lose internet and I no longer have it. And I think, oh my God, it would have also completed this for me. I would have just hit tab, but the whole method or function would be there, and I would just tweak it to suit my needs. So it is great, but then sometimes you can also rely on it too much, and then being on a plane, and the internet didn't have access to the documentation either. I can remember roughly the structure. But actually, so I was blocked, and most people aren't in that situation. But I think it's a great way to pick up a new tool, and even if you're, what's the word? Using a tool that you use often, it helps speed up, be more efficient. So it's really good in that sense. I would maybe suggest occasionally turning it off, and just maybe try and help you remember things. So therefore, if you're ever in a situation where you want to help someone, they haven't got GitHub Copilot, etc., and so on, you can maybe be a bit more helpful. So I want to try and just do a couple of hours a week, turn it off to make sure I don't, forget things. But it does help. It is very hard to do that because it does help me move so much faster. I mean, if I had to put a number on it, I can't quantify this at all, but I think using GitHub Copilot, I probably go 30 to 40% faster. And so, for me to turn it off to make sure I try and remember it is a bit hard because I want to move fast, right? Time is really, really precious for me. I mean, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. We're all learning. So if some people say, oh, if you're a junior, don't use it. Hey, look, I've been in the industry for 16 plus years and I'm still learning all the time. I need to look at documentation. I need to Google stuff. So I don't know if that actually is a valid reason. You all know I hate the whole junior and senior thing anyway. But no matter how many years experience, which I don't like also as well, I think that's a very good number to use. But wherever you are on your journey, I think we're all always learning. So, to say, should you use it or should you not if you're somewhere in your journey? I don't think that, in my opinion, matters too much because we're all always learning. But I'd love to hear thoughts from other people.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, Pradumna, you can add your insights to it.
Yeah, love the point by Eddie and great question by Kunal. My personal preference is that, for example, if I'm learning something, I will try to first get a good understanding of the concept because I think sometimes it happens that if you are writing, for example, if you are writing Express code, so the Copilot keep recommendation and your code is ready within 2 or 3 minutes. But in that process, I think we generally don't take care which code we know and which code is auto written. For example, there are some good practices. For example, when I started with Express, I don't know anything about middleware. So GitHub Copilot recommended me middleware and just I keep moving on. But when I came back to refactoring the code, I have no understanding what is going on. So I think if you are getting some understanding what is going on, then automation tools are good. If you are not, then it can be little challenging because it's hard when you don't have them. Yeah.
Yep, that was awesome, Pradumna. Thank you so much for answering. I hope Kunal's question has been answered. So
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for answering. That was I really loved the discussion there. Thanks.
thank you so much, Kunal. Thank you. Eddie, I guess you had a question. You raised hand for a question, and Kunal had a question and you replied to it. So, of course, you can go ahead asking.
Thank you so much for remembering. Yeah, so I have a question. Before I do that, I just want to say so many people have jumped into this space, so many amazing people. So thank you all for being here. And we've got amazing speakers on stage, amazing host, Bushra doing an awesome job. I see GitHub communities here, Emma, Mikhail, Raphael, Sabrina, so many awesome people. Go check them out. I'm trying to do the same as well. I'm terrible at multitasking, but I am trying. So my question is to everyone really in the audience or on stage, is what's people's challenges at the moment with Git, with GitHub, with open source? What sort of challenges do they have? And I don't mean kind of detail, it's specifics like, oh, I'm having trouble with the rebase command, for example, because someone can show that to you and after a bit of practice, you can pick it up. Like what's a kind of challenge that maybe the community can help with? And by the way, Bushra, thank you so much for the amazing shout out on Eddie Hub. I really appreciate that. And for the course as well. By the way, my course is free, everyone. So if you do want to check it out, there's a link in my bio to my website. You can find it from there. It's completely free for you. But yeah, I don't know. I'm working on some more courses and some more content, and I'd love to know what are people's challenges. So maybe we can discuss it now. We can create some more content on it, do some more collaborations and so forth. So yeah, if everyone can be just open and honest, and hopefully we can help.
Yep, that was super awesome. And your continuous learning ability shows that, yeah, this is the reason why you are the way you are right now. So, yeah, I would love to know, folks, if they would like to share their insights on it. Okay. No problem. That was great. And yeah, once again, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And it was a really overwhelming response. And shout out to many great folks. Of course, everyone is awesome over here. Thank you, Sayam, for joining in, Emma, Mikhail, Shubangi, and everyone from the community. Shout out to Eddie Hub. Shout out to Kubesimplify doing amazing work out there, helping folks. It's really happy. I'm really feeling happy seeing everyone over here. So let's move on to our question. In the pinned thread, I can see Nikhil Kete. I'm sorry if I mispronounced. Okay, Ayush has raised his hand. Yeah, sure, Ayush. Go ahead with your question. We'd love to hear.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Little vibrating. If you can fix it.
Now,
Yeah, it's
now
fine.
it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Bushra, for letting me in as a speaker and giving the chance to ask my question. So I have a lot of questions. So let me just start with my first question. It is this question is from all the speakers out here. You can what are some of the commands that you use in your daily life and that makes your life easier using it? Let's say, as for example, I have this command that is git commit -am. Folks use git add dot and then they commit separately. But I saw this tweet from Pradumna which had this git commit -am command. So these are the example of some commands which folks are not aware of but are are of very great help. So what are some of your commands which you use in your daily life? Would love to know answers from all.
Yep, it was a very handy question. Great to know. Would love to know insights from the speakers. Any one of us can start. So who's gonna answer this question of Ayush? Pavan, Eddie. So I think Pavan won by a little mark. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't use a lot of commands, but I think git remote add is one of them, and also git rebase is a really good one. They really help you out when you commit simple things and you just want to make them all into a single commit. Though they are my favorites, but I don't remember them, so I'll have to look up and then use them most of the time.
Thank you so much, Pavan. That was quite insightful. Yeah, Eddie, sure. Would love to know.
Thank you. I'll try to put up my hand slowly to give others a chance to speak, otherwise I'll talk too much. Git status -s, so with the S flag, is the command I use the most. It just gives me a summary of the files in my repo that locally that have changed, if they're staged, if not staged, and so forth. but please, everyone, do not use git add dot. Please don't use it. It gets people into so much difficulty. It creates work for them. Like, oh, it's really easy. It's added all my files. And then you create a pull request, and then someone says, well, you've added all these private files. You've added files that you shouldn't have changed because your IDE changed it, or you were just having a play with something. So I think it's really important not to use dot. Always pass it a path to a file, or at least a path, right? If you've definitely only made the right changes in the source directory, then do git add src. Right, don't use the dot, because it's going to add literally everything it can that isn't ignored. And if you haven't got your global git ignores set up, or the project git ignores, it's going to create all sorts of issues. Don't create more work for yourself. You're all busy people, so I would try and stay away from things like that. But yeah, git status minus s. Do that before you do the commit. And also another one that I use after I commit, just to double check, is you're all probably aware of git log. It shows you the commit messages and the hashes and so forth. I use git what changed. What changed is one word, and it will look a little bit like the git log, but it will actually show what files were included in that commit. So you can just check that no extra file went up, because if it has, if you've committed it, you can still undo that commit. It's a bit of extra work, but it's much less work than once you push it to GitHub. So do some checks along the way. It takes a couple of seconds, but could save you hours of time. It's just those are my two that I highly recommend.
Yeah, so true. About that dot one, yeah, it would create a mess. That was quite helpful commands. Yeah, Pradumna, you can go ahead with answering the question.
Yeah, I will add 3 commands which I use on daily basis. Instead of git log, I use git show, because git show also shows the head as well as a difference between version of the files. Git show is a little advanced version of git log. And other command I use is git log -- one line, which if you type git log, it will give a whole list of the commanders commit changes as well as inside description. But if you do one line, it will simply show you up your git messages. And I totally forgot the third one. Okay, if I remember, I will add that. Yeah, passing over the mic. Yeah.
Yep, sure. Thank you so much, Pradumna, for answering. And thank you, Aayush, for coming up with such a great question. I hope your question has been answered.
I should have attended this space with a pen and copy with me. I should have written all these commands as well. Eddie and Pradumna, they always have this out of box things to share with us. So the next question would be on code reviews. Since I am connected to SEMA, which is a company which is focusing more on the code reviews. I got to know about code reviews when I started following Eddie. Before that, the whole Git and GitHub for me was to make a project, upload it on GitHub, and then that was the only thing for me. So and this was the biggest mistake I think I was doing previously. But I would love to know, and I would love if you share your insights on code reviews. Eddie, Pradumna, and Pavan.
Yeah, buddy. Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. I love this question. Code reviews are so important, and it's something we all need to learn how to do, and we need to get better at it, right? I do code reviews, but I don't think my code reviews are very good. I'm still always trying to improve them, but we don't focus on improving that enough. So this is a great question. By the way, Aayush, I will tweet those 2 commands that I mentioned in your previous question. Therefore, other people I'm sure who weren't here could find it useful. So I'll do that shortly. So I think code reviews, so a couple of points here, otherwise, probably be here for ages. I'd love to hear from some people in the audience. I see we've got, Emma, Graham, Sabrina, Raphael, Carl. I'd love to hear from other people as well. Don't be shy, do come up and say hi. I think feedback and code review, people automatically think it's only negative stuff. I think we also need to include the positive. I love writing, oh my God, I didn't think about this, thank you. Or this has taught me something new, I didn't realize you could do this. And I love writing those, and I think people seem to focus too much on the I say negative, it could be constructive criticism, whatever you want to call it. But I think we need to focus also on the positives. It's so nice to get a comment like that, and I'm sure other people feel like that, but they don't include it. So I think people just need to maybe remember to include the positives as well. I learned that from I think I did that anyway, but now it's more conscious for me. I learned that from Matt from SEMA. So Matt, if you're listening, thank you so much. But yeah, so that's now one of my first points I ever make when we talk about code reviews. Other thing is, I think people need to, when they're reviewing someone else's work, not try to save 5 seconds or 10 seconds and write a shorter sentence, because then it might confuse the other person, or the other person might feel that you're trying to be smarter than them, for example. So to give an example, I mentioned this in the Twitter space a week ago or something. I started contributing to Kubernetes, and they have a guide on what you must do to get your... No, it wasn't Kubernetes. It was Next.js. I can't remember, one of those big projects, and they had a guide, follow these 8 steps to get your contribution accepted. And I felt that I followed those 8 steps. And they came back and said, please follow the 8 steps. So I said, I did. What step in particular did I miss? And then they sent me a link to the 8 steps. Like, I know the 8 steps, I know them, but which one? There's obviously something in their mind, and for them just to write, step 4 isn't complete properly, or we think you can do better on step 5, or whatever it is. But then it just saves that back and forth. Man, I love the discussion, but I want to have the good discussion. I don't want to have the kind of what I call, like, the admin discussion, just back and forth over stuff that is pointless. So I think it's important to try and, you have to write an essay about it, but to give as much information to direct that person to what you're thinking of as a reviewer. I definitely see it as a two-way street between the author and the reviewer. And it would be great if a second reviewer can come in, not just to review the changes, but also to potentially look at the way that person gives feedback, and maybe that can be discussed as well. I think that's super important. I know we do that in GitHub, so we do have a maintainers channel in the Discord, and I see Emma is in the audience, and Emma's always giving amazing suggestions on how to feedback to people, so I'm always learning lots on there. I think that's just something we all need to get better at. I've got a few more, but I'll let others speak first, and if there's time, you can always kind of come back to me.
I'll chime in if you don't mind. I wanted to re-emphasize, interactive rebasing. It's such a powerful tool. It is worth all of the time you need to learn it, because it's such a powerful tool. Once you kind of understand what it's doing as far as like a kind of a batch process, that is a very important concept. As mentioned, at times you have to rewrite the history of a pull request, or like what was previously said, maybe you need to make an adjustment to a particular commit within a pull request. Things like this interactive rebasing, and then you edit the particular commit. It's a very powerful tool. I use it a lot with, things like Git stash, like say, you're already working on something, and certain changes need to be done. You can kind of write them on top of your, commit history, and then you just stash it. And then you can do like an interactive rebasing to get to the commit that you actually want to edit. And then you can pop that Git stash pop that change onto the particular commit, and then you just add those changes to the particular commit that you're targeting for editing, and then you just continue with the interactive rebasing. So when you kind of are comfortable with several of these commands, it really becomes that much more powerful. So I like one thing that I've used more recently, I believe it's a Git stash allow untracked, I believe. And so maybe you're in the middle of something, you've added some files, but then you got to do something else. Adding that allow untracked, it'll actually push those untracked files into your stash stack, and then you can reintroduce those files. So that's a particularly useful command, is allow untracked, I believe. So I wanted to mention that one. Git stash allow untracked. It'll include untracked files into your stash, and then you can you can pop those out of your stash, and it's just a really powerful workflow. So interactive rebasing with some stashing. And then the other thing with interactive rebasing, and you're editing a particular commit, when you are going through this batch process and you stop at a particular commit, it's really useful to say you need to cherry pick a commit, and then, so you can include other commits into the history and then continue with your rebasing. So, it is well worth your time to learn these tools, because once you can use them together, it'll change and really optimize your workflow. I mean, I've been using Git for a long time, and it's just, it's just such a powerful tool. I mean, I can't even keep track of all the different features, but when I see something, I'm like, okay, that is extremely useful. And then I just include it into my workflow. And, another thing that I do is in repetitive tasks, I know there's Git hooks and stuff, but if I find myself doing a particular task repetitively, I'll add a function to my dot files, and so I can easily access that particular function easier. So, if that's a good suggestion, I think it's definitely helped my workflow, is just kind of scripting out repetitive tasks. And since they're included in your dot files, they become portable. So if you're kind of shelling into a VM, you can pull your dot files in and continue your workflow. So it's really useful to add functions to your dot files. That's just another way to optimize your workflow. So thank you for letting me speak, and I hope that is helpful information.
Absolutely. We loved it. Thank you so much. These were quite useful. They were extremely useful, and couldn't agree more about cherry picking commands and stuff. So true. And I would even request folks to share this space post or write a blog on it. It would be super useful and helpful for folks out there. Yeah, ID, would love to hear your points as well.
Again, with some great points there. I wanted to kind of just reiterate too, Git stash. Yep, I use it all the time and completely forgot about it. And dot files, again, is just such a great way to set up, have your config of your Git, of your, SSH or whatever you want, even your VS Code plugins, whatever you want, portable between different computers. Again, I use that a lot. And I think it can be a bit scary at first, but you can start off small. And so I highly recommend people have a look at that. You then put that in the repo, and then you can then just, it's, CodeSpaces just picks up. If you use a special repo name as well, for example, I think it's dot files, and I think it's, or it might just be dot files by itself. But CodeSpaces will just pick that up, and I think even Gitpod now has started picking that up. So start configuring your environment, your Git ignore, your global Git ignores, everything we've spoken about. Your Git aliases, if you've put aliases, because Pradumna mentioned you can put these flags on the Git log, and you get all this great stuff. I've got some of those. I have no idea what the flags are. They're saved as Git aliases in my Git config. But again, they're portable across environments. So have a look at that, and you can start off small and build it over time. Again, it's just a living repo. So Bumblebee, I don't know what your name is, but thank you so much for reminding me of those and telling us all about them.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you so much. It was great. Your points you added to them. It was great. Lovely hearing. Yes, Bhavya has raised her hand. Sure, Bhavya, you can go ahead.
Yes, agree with you, Eddie. I also used a Git stash a lot, Git stash and Git stash pop too. So these both commands really helped me. So I have one question I want to ask this. Thanks, Bushra, for giving me this opportunity. Eddie, there are many community standards. I saw this in your video and in your many live streams. Like there are many community standards to manage your open source project, like creating an issue template, PR template, and labels on various issues. So how all these measures can help us in managing our project? Before any one of you give your views on this, I just want to add this point, one point here. I learned about issue and PR template from Aayush, and Aayush learned this from you. So this is so much connected. Like we can see that there is so much power of community here. So yeah, that's it. Any of speaker can add your points here. Yes, Eddie, you raised your hand, so please go ahead.
I'll let Pradumna go first. I can go afterwards. I'll be talking a lot.
No, Eddie, you can go first. No worries.
Don't. So I don't remember what the question is now. Right, templates. So yes, there are lots of I don't want to say community standards, but a lot of kind of open source, or even you can use it on closed source project, but best practices. So templates, you're absolutely right. And I think, every probably repo organization does it slightly differently. So I'd love to see probably a standard for these. There is the standards for the issue labels, and we have a GitHub action that sets all that up for you already. Again, that's completely copy and paste into your repo. And we use the open source, I think, label standard. And we got that from Naomi, who's in Github, and runs Beckerbot. You're probably aware of Naomi. And so we all, as you mentioned, we all share and help each other, and improve on it, which is the important thing. All right, when I put content or code out there, for me, it's not the best in the world. It's a discussion point that we can all start from, discuss, and improve further. But yeah, I think it's important to have issue templates. Again, just put something out there, and you can improve these later on. The community can help improve them. You don't need like 10 templates to start off with. Just do one, then do two, and they can be small. We've got forms. You can create templates are not markdown anymore. They're actual YAML, and it actually creates forms on GitHub, which is amazing. It makes it a lot easier for people to fill it in. They don't have to kind of understand the markdown and the hidden comments and HTML stuff. So that, again, bridge the gaps between people who aren't necessarily doing the coding themselves. Same with pull request templates. I don't think we've got forms there yet, but still use a template for that. What else have we got? We mentioned GitHub Actions already, so I'm not going to go through that, but there are some that I highly recommend doing too as well. With the issue templates and pull request templates, you can assign it to certain people. You can assign certain labels. So a lot of things you can do to make things easier and more automated. Like I said, not to remove the collaboration, but just so we can focus on the more important collaboration. I'm sure there's some more, but I'll leave some for others to speak about. But I'm happy to circle back to me as well later on.
Yep, thanks, Eddie. It was quite useful. Thank you, Bhavya, for mentioning these great questions. So, any of our speakers would like to come up and ask their questions? Sure, Naman.
Actually, I don't have any question, but I would like to mention that I use Git Stash a lot, but only when I just wanted to check out to another branch to check some progress. That's it. And I again push on for Git Stash apply.
Yep, Dhananjay, I guess it's right. Thank you for asking. Yeah, Pradumna, you can surely go ahead answering the question.
Yeah, I was adding some point to the previous question about the community standard.
Yeah, sure, Pradumna, you can go ahead with that first as well.
I am personally really a big fan of community standards because I think as a new contributor breaking into the space, it's really helped a lot because in community standards, there are pull requests, issue templates, and license, contributing, code of conduct, and many things. I think pull request templates and issue templates are both beneficial for contributor as well as maintainer because a contributor get a well structured what things need to be added in a pull request, so they feel more confident because I think I have previously seen some conversation because please add your issue number, please add this screenshot. So I think it creates some noise in the pull request itself and hard for maintainers to review on these things. So having a specific and standard will help a lot in that. And talking about the code of conduct and the contributing guidelines it's really necessary because every project has some different style of contributing pattern. If you see CNCF, they have some authentication authentication settings. So yeah, if there is a proper guidelines in the contributing, so it will be easier for a new contributor how to fork a repo or something that might be possible. There are some, for example, in our one of the idea of the repo, there is a package log. There is always an issue that people regularly commit the package.log.json file, but we already have mentioned in the contributing guidelines, but young contributors might often forget to read that. Yeah, that helps in a lot.
Awesome. That was super useful, Pradumna. Thank you so much for adding the points. Dhananjay's previous question, I would like to know if anyone is up for answering. I can see two folks raising their hands. Is it for answering the question or asking the question? Okay, no worries. So if I'm not wrong, Naman was the first to raise, and then we can go to Anurag question. Yes,
Yeah,
Naman.
thanks Bushra for having me. I have two questions. My first question was related to PR. Like, how can a maintainer review a PR just by seeing the code and not seeing it visually, like what changes were made in a project? Is there any best practices for doing for reviewing a pull request?
Thank you for asking, Naman. Yes, Eddie, would really love to hear your insights on it. You can go ahead.
Thank you. This is a good question because before, I want to mention a company name in a minute, and hopefully Carl's still here in the audience. But before, I used to then stash my changes. I used to bring down their branch or their pull request, their fork, whatever it is, and then I used to apply any database migrations, whatever I needed to do, and then check it locally, and then make sure I'm happy with it. Obviously, review the changes in the pull request, leave comments, discard the changes locally, reapply in my stash. And it was quite a mess, and sometimes you could get your environment to a bit of a mess, especially with the migrations and if you set up certain data you're playing with and so on. So I got introduced to Gitpod, and that is a lifesaver for reviewing people's pull requests. You can Gitpodify your project, and again, I'm going to scroll through. Yeah, Julian's still here, so go. Julian is an expert on this. We've got a few videos on my YouTube channel about it, live streams and videos. But with some YAML config, you can Gitpodify your project. What that allows you to do is when you get a pull request, Gitpod puts a badge in the pull request description, and you literally can click it. It sets up the environment, and you can, in like 30 seconds, and you can then play with that version of the code so you can test it. It is amazing. It really, really is. It's a massive game changer because I don't have to mess up my working local environment or try and do anything clever by have another copy of the code base, have another database in a different name, all that mad stuff, right? It's an ephemeral dev environment, which means it's short-lived. So you can do what you need to do and then discard it afterwards. So yeah, for reviewing pull requests, that is a massive lifesaver.
I just wonder that is there an alternative to GitHub, and why is it not so popular as GitHub? Like, why is GitHub so big?
Great question, Hardik. Is any one of us would be answering the question of Hardik? Thank you, Pradumna. Sure, you can go ahead.
I will add 2 cents because I think the ecosystem is great. If you see VS Code or some GitHub Actions, as we talk about, and some tools which is provided by GitHub, like GitHub Copilots and code spaces, I think ecosystem make it great. Everyone knows that GitHub is owned by Microsoft, and every other product, if you see VS Code or some other products which is developed by Microsoft, I think the integration with Git and GitHub, both are really great. I think that's why industry is using. Yeah, there are other alternatives. For example, GitLab have great CI/CD pipelines. So yeah, my 2 thoughts on that. Yeah.
So basically, this question is for Eddie. Like Eddie talked a lot about freelancing. So Eddie, it's like how does one's GitHub profile helps in getting clients for freelancing? If any of other speaker wants to answer, they can. But I heard a lot about freelancing from Eddie. So
Thank you so much for this question. I'll give a moment for others if they want to jump in first, and then I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I'm just talking too much otherwise. Okay. Well, if anyone wants to interrupt me, they can. Well, we see it happening all the time. I mean, even in the last 6 to 8 weeks, I think like 5 or 6 people in the Eddie Hub community who have been working on open source projects, creating content and so forth around open source have got freelancing gigs, remote. So they're based wherever they are based in the world, and the client was, I think one's in the US and one might be in Israel. And so, because it just helps the whole interview process. Why tell someone how good you are when you can show them? I mean, if you've worked for your hard-earned cash and you're getting a builder to come build your house, and they tell you how amazing they are, but you haven't seen any of their work, you'd be a bit worried. Where if they say, hey, look, I'm really good, but why don't I show you some actual examples? So this is what it was before, and this is what it is afterwards. You're going to be like, okay, I can see what they can do. You can see how they can collaborate. I think the collaboration part is also important. When you're working on open source work, as I mentioned before, the coding part or the changes is quite a small part, whereas the collaboration is a big part. Right? Let me give an example. You might start a GitHub discussion or the GitHub issue, and then from that you're going to talk about the changes or your idea, and it's going to be discussed. And then from that you're going to make a pull request. But a pull request is effectively like an issue, but with some changes to the project attached to it. So yes, there are changes attached to a pull request, but we're still going to discuss the changes. So we're going to discuss them before in an issue and potentially a GitHub discussion. But we're also going to discuss after in the pull. We're going to collaborate in the pull request after the changes have been made. And so what I'm trying to highlight here is that it's more about collaboration than it is about code. I mean, again, it might not even be code. It could be documentation. It could be automated testing. It could be so many things. And so it's very hard to test someone in an interview. You can test someone if they can do a for loop, an if condition, switch statement, whatever it is. But it's very hard to test someone how they communicate and how they collaborate with people. You want to see that for real. Like, how do people really do it? Right? They might be putting it on for the interview. And who wants to do a 5-stage interview anyway? Why can't they just look at your GitHub, look at the content you create, and they can see how you collaborate, how you communicate, how do you reply to people's tweets. That's why, personal branding is really important, and people might not believe in it, they might not want to do it, but if people are here on stage, you're creating a personal brand, and it's great because you're reinforcing that. Because if you're not creating a personal brand for yourself, someone else is doing it for you, which you don't want, right? You want to have your own message out there. And so so I've been freelancing for over 10 years, and GitHub has been the biggest reason why I skipped in long interview processes. I won projects, and then the content creation side, I call it more documenting my journey. I don't call it content creation, but just for everyone to make sure on the same page. The content creation side also opened more doors. Doing the YouTube videos, doing Twitter Spaces, blog posts, tweets and so forth has also opened more doors. But that for me is more top of the funnel stuff as part of my strategy, right? It gives me a bigger reach, but I still need to reinforce it with the GitHub. So there's no point having being amazing on Twitter, but someone can't do whatever they need to do, whatever it is. Like if you're going for a dev role, you need to be able to do a bit of coding, you need to be able to explain to people how to do things. You need to be able to write documentation, all that stuff. You need to show that as well. So it's important to have all of them. But you don't have to be an expert in all of them. I guess I want to make it clear that you don't have to be an expert in all of them. But wherever you want to go, you need to have that. But I think GitHub really underpins all of that. Hopefully that makes sense and answers your question. I do have some videos on this on my YouTube channel as well, if that helps. I've got some more coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, Eddie, it helps a lot. Thanks for sharing this. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Bhavya, for the question, and thank you so much, Eddie, for answering. And yes, Eddie is doing an amazing work in helping folks out there in starting their journey in open source. So do check out his YouTube channel as well. He posts great content over here. Please check out Sayam's YouTube channel as well for Cloud Native. It would be really helpful for folks. And yep, Sahil, you can go ahead with your question. You're more than welcome.
Hi, Bushra, and hi, Eddie. Hi, everyone. Hi to the panel. So, I had a question for Eddie, and the main question that I wanted to talk about was that I started to deep dive more into the field of open source, and I realized that there are many major projects out there, right, which are open sourced in its nature, but for the major projects, for example, for hypothetically saying, for example, if we talk about Brave browser or a very major library or something like that, contributing to it is very difficult or something like that. The project seems to me confusing when you look at it from glance, if you just take an overview of it. And I wanted to ask, what is your opinion when you dive towards open source? Is it you can find any thing or any project to contribute, you try to do that? Or is it like when we talk about open source in the terms of job hunting or even in the terms of building up your rapport, you would rather have the names of famous projects and stuff like that, but they are difficult in its nature and stuff.
It was quite an interesting question, Sahil. Yep, Eddie, we can go ahead with you answering the question and Sayam after that. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a great question, and I think it's really important that people don't get too hung up on the names. I do, see that when hiring for my clients or people want to become maintainers on the Eddie Hub projects, they try and throw the names around, and maybe they've done a big contribution to those big projects, and maybe they haven't, maybe they fixed the typo, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. But they're throwing the name around for clout, and for me, that doesn't have the impact they think it does. Just like when someone says, "I work for Google," well, great, brilliant, but someone who works for company, I don't know, G, that no one's heard of, is also great to me. So the fan companies don't have the clout for me, and nor do the bigger repos. What carries the weight is how they collaborate and how they set up the project. I think there's two points of views. One is, how do they collaborate when they contribute to a project? Do they follow the contributing guidelines? Do they try and collaborate with the community and the maintainers? And are they trying to make noise just to get their GitHub stats up, or are they actually trying to help? Do they want to add value? And then the other side is, how are they as a maintainer on a project? And it could be just their repo that is customizing their GitHub profile page. It doesn't have to be the next big thing. It doesn't have to be anything like that. It could be just, their GitHub, customizing their GitHub profile page is a public repo. Other people could contribute to it. I want to see how they manage that. Do they use issue labels we just discussed before? Do they use GitHub Actions? Do they try and follow some of the best practices? When people comment, how do they reply? Are they supportive? They try and help. They try and understand, or are they trying to seem smarter than the other person by making it more confusing for them? So that's what I want to see. Again, if I had two people and one said, "Hey, I've contributed to my friend's project. It's got 1 star," and another person says, "Hey, I've contributed to Kubernetes. It's got like 80,000 stars." I'm going to look at their contributions. I don't and how they collaborate. The stars and the size of the project have no bearing or impact on my decision. You put your hand up. Brilliant. Follow-up question. I love those.
Yeah, so actually I was giving an interview once, and the point is that people think when you contribute to the big names, there is there is a fact that they will only accept PRs from people who have already written a quality level of code, right? If you are contributing to a major library, they won't just take a PR or accept a PR of any random person. So I think that's why a lot of people, in the least, when I had talked to that interviewer, he said that it's a very bigger thing for them that they haven't contribution to a bigger library.
I completely disagree with them because having looked at some Kubernetes projects this week or last week, some of them don't even have automated testing. And I've seen smaller projects that have automated testing, unit testing, end-to-end testing, lots of great best practices. There's nothing wrong with that Kubernetes project, but I'm just saying they're focusing on features, rather than say best practices. And that project had 12,000 stars versus someone else who might have 4 stars, and yet they're following best practices. So I think that person who said that will eventually learn and realize that doesn't matter. The importance is, how well is the project set up? Because if someone's contributing to someone's project, and they've got automated testing, and they're using linters, and they're making sure that the Git commits follow, say the conventional commit standards, that's more effort than some other the big projects that I've seen that don't follow these standards. So yeah, I completely disagree with that person, and maybe they just lack a bit of experience as well. So obviously I don't know them. I don't want to say anything bad about them either. But my point is, I think I used to think that at the beginning as well. So I'm not trying to say, hey, I woke up right at the beginning and was like, right, I know what I know now from the beginning. No, it's things I've learned over time. And the vanity metrics and the clout of certain names is what I used to think at the beginning as well. But having been in the industry for a while, realized that actually that has no value. Really, it's the how they collaborated and what they contributed on. And by that, I don't mean it has to be the biggest feature. It's like how much value do they add to the project. So say, for example, a project, one last thing I promise, and I'll pass the mic over to Siam. But say for example, there's a project and they've got great best practices. They've got automated testing, but say those automated tests are not running on GitHub Actions, then someone could just create a YAML file and it's probably like a few lines of YAML config and it'll take them like a couple of minutes to do. You might think, well, that's not really a great contribution. I think that's an amazing contribution because they've taken what is done already really good, but made it better. They made it run for everybody. Now, anyone who makes any contribution, any pull request, anything, the GitHub action is going to run the automated tests. They're already there, but it just it's making it easier, lowering the barriers to entry for other people who want to contribute. It's reducing the wasted conversation, not the good conversation, but the wasted conversation. Oh, you got this failing test and so forth. So it's not on the quantity or on how hard the changes are. It's on how much value it brings. Is what I like to kind of leave as my closing note.
That was super awesome. Yes, Ayam, you can please go ahead with your follow-up points. Would love to hear
I
your
think
opinion. Yes.
I think Eddie already have given great points. Just to add a few, I think to a few of your questions, Sahil. I think the most bigger projects would be actually easy to contribute because they have a proper procedure in place. They have a community in place. So the people who say that it's difficult to contribute in a project like Kubernetes, I would say that it's much easier than the smaller projects to contribute. There you can pick up issues, and there are like many issues which are there that you can pick up from. You can start working, and there's a community that helps you out. So I think bigger projects are a bit easier because they already have standards, they already have community, they already have. I do not think that I have seen the starting Kubernetes contributors with an experience. I have seen many students contributing to that project. That means you can do that. So it's nothing that for contributing to big project or you just have a contributor to Kubernetes stuff in your name that makes a person stand out. And with a small PR, which is just a small bug fix, though every contribution matters. I definitely agree on that. All contributions have a value, but if you consider it's just like considering the brand names. But in projects, probably we do not consider brand names. In projects, it's the contribution that you have done. Like if you have done a major code refactoring and you have removed 1,000 lines of code which was not used, and you have contributed a small piece which actually replaces that, I think that's a very valid contribution. That gets you more points than a small change in a Kubernetes repository. So I think whosoever you are interviewing with, I cannot comment on that, but that conceptualization in their head is kind of wrong. That you will be considered if you have a person A will be considered if they have contribution in a big project, and a person B won't be considered if they have a very good contribution in a small project. So I don't think that works out, and people judge it. Like I have taken many interviews, and I have taken interviews with people who say they are Kubernetes certified, but having Kubernetes certified doesn't mean that you know Kubernetes, because you don't because I don't judge by the certification. I judge by people how they are answering the questions, because I can very immediately make out if a person has done a certification and they have done it by the wrong means, or they have done it just for the sake of certifying and not the learning journey. So same for the contributions. If you have contributed, if you say in your resume big you have, I am contributor to Kubernetes, I have contributed to NumPy, I have contributed to this, and you internally know that your contributions are very small and minute. So the interviewer might ask you the questions, and I think within 2 or 3 minutes, they'll get to know that your contributions are valid or not. So to be honest, this kind of thinking, if the interviewer is having that you contribute to X project, so you already have a value and you never seen that. So I think you just keep contributing to very small projects as well. There are in Cloud Native ecosystem as well, because I deeply work over there. Eddie can highlight all of the front end projects which are solving a particular purpose, where you can actually make big contributions. You can be a maintainer of that project, and you can actually take it to the next level. So I think that route, I always encourage people. They say Kubernetes is vast. How do I contribute to it? I say, like, there are 1,000+ projects in CNCF landscape. Why you only see one Kubernetes project which is out there? Why not others who are also adding a lot of value to the ecosystem? Because if you only have Kubernetes and if you don't have monitoring projects, it's of no use. If you only have Kubernetes, you have no security projects, it's of no use. If you have only got Kubernetes and no policy or projects, I think there's a whole ecosystem out there. An ecosystem has 1,000+ projects, 1,000+ maintainers, 1,000+ companies supporting them. So you have a great chance to kind of contribute to open source in a big way. I think you just need to find where your interest lies. So you can find your interest in project, you can find your interest in maintainers, you can find your interest in the coding language. Let's say you know Rust very well. So find a project like Rustlet, which is written in Rust and helps you in Kubernetes. So you are a cloud native person who wants to contribute in Rust, and you find the maintainers interesting, go to that project. So I think those are some of the key areas that you can put in your mind when you want to contribute. And do not think a project is small, a project is big. Contribution is contribution. In the end, your interview will judge you by the questions that they actually want to ask. So it's just, the filtering out stuff that can help you with your GitHub profiles, that you are a contributor to a very big project. You might, and that also is not a guarantee, but you might get a, skip ahead of line in the interview. But again, they would very well judge within minutes about your contributions. Yep, that's it. What I had to say.
Thank you so much, Sayam. It was extremely useful and insightful. Thanks a lot for sharing. Couldn't agree more. Yep. And yep, so we'll be wrapping up the session, and we are really glad uh, for the overwhelming response of the folks. So Pavan was raising hand. If you have any question or views regarding it, should we continue or it's fine, I guess? Okay. Okay, Pavan. So yep, thanks a bunch, everybody. So hope. Uh, Thank you, Sahil. I think we must wrap. Uh, okay, so it would be the last question, I guess. Okay, so everyone is supporting to just wrap. Thank you so much for asking, Sahil. Your questions got answered really well. So, yep, so a bit of closing remarks. So, thank you for tuning in, and do share the mouth of word about the Cube Simplifies Spaces, Eddie Hub community. You can post about this Twitter space and create a thread as well, or write a blog, and we'll share across your accounts. And yep, don't forget to come up in the next spaces. Trust me, the upcoming ones would be more awesome. Yes, Sam.
Just
Sure.
one last thing. A shout out to Eddie. He is amazing person, amazing human being, and he always does superb work for the community, not only himself. So I think he always try to rise others above. I think that is very crucial when you are creating a community. You should always think about rising other people and giving them the direction, because there are times when you get stuck, and if you have overcome that, then probably you want your younger ones or anybody else not to face the similar kind of issue, and Eddie does that. Free courses, guidance, mentorships, replying on the DMs, they all are super hard works, and he does that. I mean, everything. So I think probably definitely follow Eddie and his community, and learn from him, and complete respect.
Yep, Eddie, you can surely go ahead.
Just to say thank you so much for that amazing shout out. You're all too kind. To be honest, I'm learning from all of you. You all have amazing community, amazing community members, and we're learning and improving all the time. So any feedback is welcome. And just amazing to geek out with you today. On that note, in terms of communities, we have got a Twitter space on Sunday with Emma was in the audience. We've got Kunal and Graham was in the audience as well on creating inclusive communities, because that's really, really important. So we focus on in Eddie Hub. There's so many open source communities out there, but we focus on inclusive open source community. And I've got a live stream in literally 2 minutes. So if anyone wants any open source green squares on GitHub, come and join us on our YouTube channel. Emma is going to be showing us her new GitHub organization focusing on accessibility, and we're going to be setting up and we're going to be creating some repos and getting some green squares and so forth. So sorry for the shameless plug, but thank you all so much for this amazing Twitter space. I look forward to next time.
Hey, thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you so much, Sayam. Yep, you're right. Couldn't agree more. Green squares are love. Yep. So, yep. So please check out the amazing community, and we are really grateful to the folks to carve out their time and include and participate in our space. So I leave the space open for a few minutes. You can share, you can follow each other and do connect folks. And yep, it was amazing. Thanks a lot. And yeah, these Twitter spaces would be recorded and you can check out Sayam's YouTube channel. If you have missed, share it. And upcoming spaces would be more awesome. We have our spaces live on every alternative Fridays. So thanks a lot. We'll do the next soon. Have a good day and good night. Thanks for joining everyone.